9 o'clock, Tuesday morning, November. It is still November. It is very grey outside, but the temperature has dropped a tiny little bit. I think it's 8 degrees this morning, so it's nice to get a little bit of seasonal weather. And I'm hoping that you are keeping well wherever you are. So if you're joining me live, please leave the hashtag live. And if you're joining me later on the replay, leave me the hashtag replay. Don't forget to let me know whereabouts in the world you are and check in with your own weather forecast. So we're heading up to the festive season, and I thought it'd be quite nice to see what I could find from my garden that I could add to my Christmas decorations, or my door wreaths, or my table arrangements, or even to my table settings without spending an absolute fortune. So the theme for today is Christmas trees. I'm going to show you 3 ways of making mini Christmas trees. One of them is with the rosemary, which has got the lovely aromatic scent, which I've been having a sniff of since I've cut it. And this idea I got is really simple, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that in a moment. I was flicking through one of my many Christmas magazines, and I saw this picture as a decoration for a Christmas cake. So watch this space. I may well reproduce my Christmas tree slightly closer to Christmas and put it on my Christmas cake. And if you're interested in where I get my inspiration from for Christmas, watch out for next week's pre-recorded video. I'm going to be flicking through some of my Christmas magazines, deciding which ideas I can adapt or change, use to inspire me, and perhaps it will inspire you too. So I'm going to show you something with some rosemary. Here as well, I have just been cutting lots and lots of conifer. So this is the kind of conifer the Leylandii, the total nuisance garden hedge, planted because it grows quickly and then it very quickly gets out of control. So I like to think I'm doing myself a little public service duty by trimming back our conifer hedge on a regular basis. It's okay trimming for the sides, but once your conifer hedge has got too tall, above about, just 1.82 metres in height, it becomes really unwieldy to cut, and you'd have to get quite serious step ladders going on, or proper machinery to do it. So I've done my little bit by taming it by cutting off the edges at the side, and I'm personally hoping I'm cutting it back too hard, and then the whole lot will die, and then we can plant something that's a bit more natural. So this is tucked right at the end of our garden, planted by the people we bought our house from. And I think originally the conifer hedge went all the way down to the back of the house and all the way out on the front garden as well. And when we moved in, the bit next to the main section of the garden here had already been felled by the previous occupants. And we planted what you see in all my videos, which is a mixed native hedge. So I'm going to be doing 2 trees with this. One, a very simple tree. Good morning, Linda. Oh, I'm so pleased you found me, Linda. A little bit later on today, just to give us a bit more of a breathing space. So I hope you're keeping well, Linda. So I'm going to show you one tree that way, and I'm also going to show you how to make a Grinch Christmas tree. Now, I always say that I'm a little bit out of step with popular culture. I know what a Grinch Christmas tree is. It's a Christmas tree that's got a curly bit on the end. But I didn't really know who the Grinch was. So those of you who are my American fans will be throwing things at your phone screen by now. So I did have to look it up. So Dr. Seuss, I think we all know Dr. Seuss. I can certainly remember the lovely colourful hardback books when I was a very young child. We had them at school, but not at home. Green Eggs and Ham is the one that comes to mind, and something about 10 hats on top, don't quite know. So the whole thing about the Grinch is the green character, head to toe and green, and the Grinch who stole Christmas. I have not got a clue what the story is about, but the drawings, the sort of cartoon style drawings in the books, had pictures of Christmas trees, and then they had this curled over a bit at the top. So I'll show you how to make that as well. With all the ideas, well, particularly with the conifer ideas I'm going to show you, you can scale them up. So you could actually make the trees as if they were, looked like mini potted Christmas trees, you could come quite high. With the rosemary ones, by default, they're going to be a little bit smaller. But I'm going to make everything quite small because I'm thinking that I might place my mini Christmas trees on a napkin on my table when I lay my table for Christmas, or I may even incorporate them into little decorations. So you remember when I made the Advent crown and I lit the candles during last week's live video, and it's got that clay base. If I was to do something similar, I could have the clay at the bottom, and then I could have this little forest of trees and really pare things back. So let's start off with the rosemary. So I have picked quite a long bit of rosemary because it's the woody bit at the bottom rather than the more flexible bit at the top that I actually want. So the rosemary grows with the sprouts going upright, but if you turn it up the other way, it starts then to look like the fronds of a Christmas tree. So what I'm going to do is take off the top bit here, just pull it off with my fingers, being very careful I don't go too far, like that. And then if I cut to length there, and then if I just shape a little bit at the top, a little bit of fine tuning, and I'm going to pull out some of these bigger needles, and there I have got myself a mini Christmas tree. Doesn't that look good? So you have to turn the rosemary upside down and remember that the top bit of the rosemary, which is probably the bit that you pull off if you're doing your roast lamb. I make focaccia, I think quite often. I have been known to make focaccia from time to time, and it's the bits I pull off the top bits. So instead of cutting my rosemary for my focaccia, when I put it in the little dimples that you make, I just go through and I pick them off like that. So it's definitely the woody bits that you want to use. So I am thinking that that will go on my Christmas cake. I could have a snowy scene, and the picture that I saw in my magazine had a tiny little gingerbread house next to it. I'll have to have a think about that, but I can definitely see that my Christmas tree may well feature at some point in time. So I think it does show up best against the dark of my coat. So number one down, two more to go. So with the conifer, again, it's quite floppy, quite difficult to use. And in fact, the reason why I've cut so much conifer, and it'll probably need a little bit more, is I'm teaching a door wreath making class to my... It is cute, isn't it, Linda? So easy to do. And all you need is someone to tell you how to do it. And it's just... And I think the fact is that it's upside down, so it's like everything. Just look at the world a little bit differently. And don't always assume that you have to look at plants at the way that they grow, when you could quite easily just turn them upside down and make something else. So a Christmas door wreath I'm going to be making in class. So spoiler alert, if you're coming to class with me in Canterbury tomorrow, we're going to be making door wreaths on wreath rings. And traditionally you make your door wreath by packing it with moss, with sphagnum moss. So it gives a bit of shape to your wreath, and also it's got some water retaining qualities, and it'll keep your other greenery fresh. But that's going to be rather messy for class. So the way I sort of teach a dry method of making a Christmas door wreath, where I pack out my wreath frame using lots and lots of my awful conifer. I will say that the awful that I don't really like. I would say this conifer is quite dull. It's very flat, and you can get some more decorative varieties of conifer that got a bit more of a 3D form and a bit more of a crinkly look to the fronds. So I am going to be substituting conifer for moss, and I'm just going to sort of get sausages of conifer and go all the way around. So it'll give me the shape and profile, but it won't have any water retaining qualities. Now I have found, I don't know about you if you make your Christmas door wreath or perhaps you buy one, that I'll put my door wreath up at the beginning of December and, you know, keep up till 12th night on the 6th of January. And I would say that probably excuse me, right the way up to the end of January. I have it lying on my patio table because I can't quite bear to get rid of it, because I've put all that effort into home crafting it and making it. And I would say that on the whole, the greenery doesn't look any the worse for wear, not having been in contact with the water retaining moss. So it does depend on the greenery that you use. And I would always advise that if you're making your door wreath at home, cut your greenery, put it in water so it's in tip-top condition. And if you are concerned about your greenery, you can always get a spritzer and squirt it with water every now and again. I might have done that once or twice, but run up to the Christmas season, who's got time to stand in front of their door and squirt? And of course, really, you'd want to take your wreath off the door, lay it down and squirt it so you didn't end up with dribbles all over your front door. A little caveat to that though, obviously I live in the UK, and actually my front door is north facing under a little porch canopy, so it's protected from the elements. So if you live in warmer climes, or your front door is south facing, or it's just right on the front of your house and you don't have anything protective over the top of it, it may well be that your greenery in your wreath may start to curl. And the trick to that is just to get spray paint out and zhuzh with a bit of spray paint. Definitely do that on a sheet of newspaper on the floor. Don't be doing that against your front door. But you can just sort of disguise anything that's crinkly or dead, dying or dangerous. And of course, if needs be, you take your scissors and you cut out the bits that don't look so good. And you could always hot glue replacement greenery in. Now, whispering really. Is it okay to make a door wreath if you're using a hot glue gun? I don't really know. Well, I've got another idea for a wreath making project. Have you seen the door wreaths that are for sale in the supermarkets? The ones in our supermarket are facing the shop floor, naturally. But when you come out through the tills, you kind of walk through the back view of the door wreaths. And it's not until I reach that point when I'm exiting the shop that I think actually they'd be quite good to buy, because in our particular supermarket at the moment, they are made on straw wreath bases, the really compact straw. It looks like sort of a bale of hay that's been made into a circle. And that would be quite handy, because once your door wreath had died off, the pine, you could just cut it all off and then you've got a nice rigid base that you could use again. And it also is quite handy with the supermarket ones that they've been pre-greened. They've got the Christmas pine on it. They're really, really skimpy with their decorations. And what you could do, if you haven't been able to get to a door wreath class or you don't have the materials at home, I would suggest if you buy one of those comparatively inexpensive door wreaths in the supermarket, what you can do is pick off all the decorations, which are tremendously naff. They're just a bit mean, and I think I would rather have a plain foliage door wreath with perhaps one bow on, rather than one pine cone, one cinnamon stick and one bunch of oranges. It does look a bit sad. But what you can do, if you sort of lift up the layers of the door wreath, get your hot glue gun out and you can glue your greenery in there. It's quite effective and it does hold up. So if time allows, and if there's still door wreaths for sale at the supermarket, I may well show you how to do that in a future live episode. But shall we get on with the show? So I've got this quite boring flat greenery, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bundle this in my hand. Now, off to the side, I should say, I have got some wire. So I have got mossing wire, binding wire, and this is what you would traditionally add your moss onto your door wreath with. I'm thinking about coughing. Everyone else in my family is quite ill at the moment, and I'm just thinking my days are numbered, particularly because when you've got one man down, you realise how helpful everyone else is in the house normally. And I'm having to find all these extra hours in the day to do the jobs around the house, which aren't my jobs. Number one of which, dog walking. 2 hours a day dog walking. Well, not all in one go, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to be using my binding wire. So when the video's gone live, I will leave links to this. So if you do want to make your own, and like anything when you're shopping online, just to make sure you know what it is you're buying. So if you want to visualise that, you could probably buy that at your local garden centre if they have a Christmas section, or perhaps Hobbycraft or something like that. They do sell them individually, but also, just fair warning, they also sell them in packs of 30. So just make sure, if you're just using it for yourself, one reel will be enough to make your Christmas dory. Two, if you're feeling nervous, but you don't need 30 of them. So I'm going to use that as well. So what I'm going to do here is I've got the woody stem, and I'm going to I've got one long bit of greenery. I want to make something slightly bushier, so I'm just going to take my scissors and cut that down into 3. Now, I think that might be a bit too bulky, the stem end. And can you see as I start to cut it down, it's sort of vaguely got the shape of a Christmas tree. I'll use this one here as well. So again, I've held my greenery upside down. It grew like, well, actually it didn't grow like that, it sort of grew like that. But the wooden, the sticky bits would have been attached to the tree. So taking the water up. So I am turning them the other way around. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to take this to add a little bit of detail, just a little bit of the green off the top. So I'm ending up with these little twiggy bits here, and then I'm going to take my wire and wrap it around the top so it's bound together, and then I'm going to wrap my wire all the way around this bushiness. Now, as I said, my conifer is quite flat. If you've got one that's got more of a 3D bounce to it, you'll be a bit more springy than I am, but actually I think you're probably going to make a nicer tree than I am. So what I'm going to do is hold all that in my hand and travel down and sort of encapsulating the fronds of the pine. So it depends on the kind of look you're after, and of course the size that you want, whether you go really densely with your wrapping or slightly less dense. So if I wanted to make a small Christmas tree, let's imagine I want to make a small one, I cut my wire off, and then you've got a pokey bit of wire that's sharp. So what I will do is bend that and push it back into the bulk of where I have been snipping. So there's too much down here. So I'm going to pretend I'm the hairdresser and sort of cut out the bottom bits, trying not to cut them straight. I'm trying to sort of get a degree of naturalness going on. So I didn't think the pieces of conifer I was using were particularly big, but you can see that you don't need much to create a tree shape, and perhaps all these little bits that I'm cutting off I could make into another tree. So it looks slightly more tree-like, and then off to the side I've got a stick, and I'm going to stick that stick up the bottom of the tree. So if I turn it that way around and just sort of flatten everything out, I will be able to slide that stick up through, and I can feel it locking in to where I did my wrapping over the top. So that's better. I've moved it because I could see the stick sticking out. So then you get to do your trimming. But just it's like all those things. If I gave you a can of white paint, you wouldn't just paint the trim, would you? You'd be painting everything. So don't cut off too much. And then do you want all this shaggy bit here? You might think it looks a bit whimsical and you like it, but you might think that you want to trim it all away. So it's entirely up to you whether you want something that is a neat and petite triangle, or if you want it to be a bit more fancy at the bottom. So it's a bit more like a sort of stylized version of a Christmas tree. And then that's on a really tall stick. It's a bit wobbly because the stick gets a bit slimmer at the end, so I can cut that to size. So if I had a little terracotta pot, a little dab of clay at the bottom, stick that in there, and then do a little top dressing in the pot. So that could be pebbles or a bit of moss, and then you've got your own little Christmas tree. I will probably, I'm keeping the stem long, realistically, if I was actually going to use this, I think I would prefer to cut the stick slightly shorter, and then I could lay that on my napkin as part of my table setting. But it's a great thing to have a little bit of a play around. I mean, shall we see how, I'm just wondering where that little bit of stick that I've got rid of, it must have bounced off the table. But the bits of conifer that I trimmed off, if you were being really delicate, whether you could make something. It's like making, so I really enjoy doing, making something out of nothing. So it may be that you're putting the garden to bed, you're doing one last trim. I know that our lawn is going to get cut shortly, just waiting for, I say we, my husband, quite clearly. I'm not going to mow the lawn. That's not within my remit. Of course I can, but I just don't. I choose not to. So the lawn needs putting to bed, and also we got lots of leaves on the lawn. But I did notice, I don't know if you can see here, we've still got loads of leaves on our trees. But that is the way we clear our leaves up. The royal way is that we give the lawn a mow and then the leaves collect. So none of this wind blowing business, the leaf blowers. So I've got another little bunch there. These are all the off-cut trimmings. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Off, down, 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 and then travel down the end of my because these are slightly flimsy because they haven't got the wooden twiggy bit to them. It's slightly more, they're a little bit more flimsy is what I'm trying to say. I'm just sort of controlling them like that. And then get rid of the wire, the cut end, so you just bury that down inside the bulk of what you've just covered. And then where did that little bit of twig go that pinged off? But what I could do is use one of the actual twigs that came with the conifer. So it's nice and woody. So my little bit of tube there, turn it upside down, wiggle my little stem in until, you know, I can feel that's locked. It's not going to, a test of everything, isn't it, to give it a little bit of a waggle. So I've got one slightly bigger and one slightly smaller there. So I'll just give that a little bit of a trim there so those bits aren't too long. But you'll never see the perfect tree, will you? Do you remember when I can remember going out with my dad, we always used to get our Christmas tree practically on Christmas Eve. So we'd have the runt of all the trees. I think he was after saving money, but we can certainly remember going out with my dad and then trying to choose the perfect tree. And of course there isn't one, is there? Because it's always got a big, I think they call them Charlie Brown trees now, don't they? But for us growing up, it was just the end of the pile. They were always a little bit misshapen. And then you'd have to twist it round, wouldn't you, so the good side showed. So that is how you'd make these little trees. But what if you want to make the Grinch tree, where you got the bit that's bent over at the top? So what you will need is a stick to start work on. So I'm going to cut my stick. And then I have got a box of wires, which I keep in this knitting needle box, which I got from a charity shop. It's got a little granny on the front of it. And I've got some wires here. So these wires, sometimes your wires have a coating on them and sometimes they're uncut, is annealed wire. But the reason I've chosen that is because my other wire doesn't have a coating on it either. So it doesn't matter whether you've got the green wires or not. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to wrap my wire on the end of my stick, and that is what will become the bit that bends. I can't bend this stick to create that Grinch little hook. So I'm going to lay the wire across the end of my stick, overlapping by about 5 centimetres, and just wrapping it round. And I'm ending up with that much wire at the top. And of course it depends how bendy, how much of a bend you want, how strong your wire is, you know, it's up to you, but let's try that. And if I decide it's too long, I can always trim it back. So what we then do is we make the tree, but we start from the other end and we wrap and go all the way up. So I'm going to attach my wire here with a little wrap round and then a twist to get going, taking care that you're not pinging yourself in your eyes. And then you get all these little bits of greenery. And this would look lovely if you had different kinds of green. So I'm using plain old, dare I say it, boring conifer. But the one saving grace is when you actually cut it, it does have a lovely scent. So I'm taking the bits of green and I'm going to lay them on the branch That's a bit long, that one. And get all the way round. So, you know, I might need 3 or 4 pieces to go all the way around. So I would say when you're doing this is you need to bundle them up. Don't put them on one at a time. You'll be there absolutely all day. And then go round, you know, once, twice. I've got little bits sticking out here. Do I want to keep them? Do I want to trim them out? I don't think it really matters. And then you work your way up the tree. I'm thinking now perhaps I should have started a little bit higher. But you're sort of travelling up the top of the tree. So hold those all on together, wrap, wrap, wrap. And then next slot, coming up. Again, I'm using all the offcuts from that first tree. Let's see how it's going. Like that. And then I think I will cut some more into some manageable pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm not always just using the tips of the branches. So, you know, these nice delicate points. If you do that, you're going to have to cut an awful lot of greenery. I'm going out of each sort of long piece, I am cutting and making it into 3 or 4 other pieces. And as I said as well, my conifer is very flat. So I'm not going to get, you know, a massively full 3-dimensional tree. If you had some more decorative conifer that had a, you know, a bit of a crinkle to it, you would get more of a pleasing shape. Now I'm coming to the stage now where I am at the top of my piece of wood. So I'm then going to be wrapping up on my wire. So I'll have to concentrate for this bit. I have to snip some more. Snip, snip. So again, I've gone for about 3 pieces. And here, when I was winding around the trunk was only probably about ½ centimetre thick, but now I'm winding around the wire, which is really skinny. So I just need to make sure that as I go up, I'm being as firm as I could. I don't want the whole tree to just sort of lift off at the top. So put your tree goggles on. Up a bit higher. I think I'm going to choose even smaller pieces. Around we go. So now I'm about level with this little bit of wire at the top, and I don't want that scratching myself, so I'm going to go level and then a little bit higher. So like everything we make, you know, floristry with wires, they're to be admired, they're not playthings. Oops. So I've got to the top, so I'm finished, and I'm going to cut myself a little length, a couple of centimetres, because I need to get rid of this pointy end. I'm going to bend that down and then slide it down inside so there's no sharp pieces. And then it's a matter of looking at your tree and thinking, you know, does that look okay? Does it need a trim? I can see that long bit there is bothering me. So again, I'm kind of going, I'm not cutting square, I'm trimming up into the greenery in order that it still maintains that natural look of the branches. As I'm imagining, I don't know, I'm not a hairdresser, but I'm imagining, you know, when the hairdresser comes in and layers your hair, it's sort of that kind of cutting into it rather than across. I want a little bit. It's that bit that's bothering me. So you can do a little bit of trimming. So you've got a very nice tree that looks not dissimilar to that tree, not dissimilar to that tree, but the advantage of this tree is it's then got that little bit of wire in the top, and you can bend the top over and look, you've got a Grinch Christmas tree. So you may find, if you search for these online, search for Grinch Christmas tree, Grinch, you'll see that sometimes they're made with a really exaggerated curl. They might come all the way down. Well, that just means there was a longer piece of wire that was put in on top of the twig. So you might want to make a feature of that. And I know that one of my loyal viewers has asked how you would make a Christmas gnome to put into a door wreath. Well, I just want you to hold that thought for the moment. But imagine this, if you had a little bit of a bauble at the bottom, and then you put some white greenery in here for a beard, and you could put some googly eyes in it, whatever your taste is. You too could have a little gnome that you could add into a Christmas door wreath. So next week, I think I am on my schedule. I'm going to show you how to make a little round base that could be, if you didn't want to use wire in your Christmas door wreath, that you could use a wicker, a woven base to make your door wreath on. So it's about how many materials you can find, and what's available in your garden. So for demonstration purposes, I may well make one that's sort of quite neat and petite, probably a little bit small to hanging on my front door, but it would certainly look rather lovely if I hung it up from one of the windows or on the mirror inside the house. Oh, Linda. Oh, Linda, thank you so much. It definitely looks like a Grinch, says Linda. So you can stay in the club, Linda. Thank you very much. And of course, like everything, you can just have a little tweak and a twist. And of course, when you came to make the second one is always better because you know where you're going with the project. I'm just going to take out those little brown bits of. It's addictive. Once you get a pair of scissors, you'll be trimming off all over the place. So I'm going to sign off for now. So just to remind you that there's no Zoom flower class now until the new year. But if you are in my Facebook group, Flowers Start World, and I'll leave a link to that in the notes underneath this video, I have put up a poll asking what you would like me to cover next time. There seems to be a split, a sort of a three-way split between beginners flower arranging, more contemporary ideas, and teaching as well. So if you've ever been asked to show the ladies in your WY or your own flower club or your book group how to make a creative project with plant materials, and you've been a little bit nervous about how to do that, that is one of the suggestions I've made, taking you through, teaching you how I teach my classes. If you're not in my group, you're more than welcome to leave some suggestions and comments underneath this video of the kind of things you would like to make. So I'm conscious of the fact that lots of my learners have been with me from the beginning of Zoom class and they have progressed, but I don't want those who are a little bit more reticent about their flower arranging skills to feel they've missed the boat. So perhaps you more advanced flower arrangers might like to leave me a comment about what would you want to know if you were a beginner flower arranger? And for those of you who are beginner flower arrangers, what is it that you've been too scared to ask how to do? And I will see whether I can fit those ideas into a programme that would suit you. So I'm going to, as ever, warm up, go back indoors with my little forest of Christmas trees, and I will catch up with you same time, same place next week. Oh, and just another quick say, normally I do a Facebook Live on a Friday, but I've got my first Christmas dinner of the season, so I won't be going live on a Friday, but if you're in the group, I will let you know on an alternative date. So that's all from me for now, and I will see you next time.